Hello, I'm Orestria, and welcome to my Seasonal Impressions Spring 2020. So, this is gonna be a weird one. Usually when I record Seasonal Impressions, I'm talking about completed shows, or at least completed seasons. And this time, because of The Thing, not all the shows are finished. I will talk about the things that I watched. For some of them, I will have to say I watched until it went on hiatus, and just say whether or not I intend to continue once it comes back. As you can maybe tell by my first image here, that's right, I'm going with a slideshow this time instead of with the AnyChart website. The first show we're going to talk about is Digimon Adventure 2020. This is a remake of the original Digimon show with more of a budget. And it's also incorporating some of the material that was in the movies, so we don't start with the Digidestined arriving in the digital world like we did in the original. I thought it seemed very passable. The animation is definitely a big upgrade. Of course, it is a very kid-friendly show. I don't know if there's much here for you if you are a grown adult, but I was enjoying it because I have a lot of nostalgia for the show. This is one of the shows that went on hiatus. I think I only saw like 2 episodes. So I am going to watch more when it comes back. I don't think I'll be in for the long haul. We'll see. Next up is Bungou to Alchemist. I enjoyed the first episode. The first episode started in media res with us inside a book, following this character in the book with this strange man, helping him stay on track with the book, and it turns out that there are some like evil book devouring things that were trying to destroy the book. And thanks to this alchemist guy, he was able to save his book. And he's actually the representation of a real Japanese literary author. I did not know this was a thing, but apparently, like, Bungou, like, classic literature authors being put into media is actually a bit of a thing in Japan. There's multiple shows. Bungo Stray Dogs, which I never got around to watching, is the same characters. Like, the characters will have the same names because they're all literally based on these actual people who existed. I didn't make it halfway through the second episode once we were actually in the strange space where these literary authors exist and live while they're waiting to go and save books. The characters didn't grab me, and the exposition somehow managed to be, like, useless and boring at the same time. I think maybe they're expecting you to have some kind of attraction to these characters already because of this history of putting these literary authors into materials, but I don't have that background, so that was not there. Appare Ranman, another show that went on hiatus and another show that started in media res. This is supposed to be a death race, car race across America back in like the time of cowboys and samurai. And that sounds really cool. You're not going to get that in the first couple episodes. It started in media res at the very beginning of the race, and I wish they just kept going with that, because after hooking you with that, they go back into history of how all the characters got here, and it was like 3 episodes of that, and we didn't even really get to the race starting at the point where the show went on a hiatus, which is real awkward. I'm attracted to the idea of it, and I'm very hopeful for once the actual race starts. It's not that the setup is, like, terrible or has been poorly done. It just felt really unnecessary, especially if you're going to start in media res, then just, like, go for it. I feel like this could have been revealed in bits and drabs over the course of the series, instead of being like, we're going to have a cool car race. Wait. Which is what they did. I'm also somewhat concerned about some of the character designs, which it has serious potential to be really awkward. That said, I would like to see what the show is like now that I think the race is actually starting, so I am planning on watching it as it starts back up. This show is Fugou Keiji Balance Unlimited, aka Too Many Colons, the show. So this is another show that went on hold, and it is pretty ridiculous. We have this super mega rich guy, like Batman levels of wealth, who has decided to join this Japanese police task force. And the task force is usually where they shove all the really useless failures of police officers and they just sit there and kind of do nothing. But there's one member of this task force who actually really does care about justice and doing things the right way. The show did tell us why he got kicked out of, like, the first-class detectives, but it was so many months ago that I genuinely don't remember. The important part is he wants to do it by the books. He wants to do it by throwing cash at every problem. And that's where the comedy comes from, especially since so far on the show, his stupid-ass method has been working. We're talking, like, he solves a problem by buying a building. Well, we have permission to go in now, it's mine. Also, when I Googled it, Google's first suggestion for a question was like, Fugou Keiji, is it BL? Which is probably mostly just my search history coming to get me. It is not BL. It's never stopped me. Next, we have Gal to Kyouryuu. This show is, in fact, about a gal and a dinosaur. Now, when I say gal, I'm not just using a slang term for a woman. Gal is a Japanese fashion subculture kind of inspired by American TV shows they saw in the 90s. So it's like blonde hair, tan skin, heavy makeup, long nails, kind of flashy clothing, which is very different than what's considered the traditional or normal beauty standard in Japan, with dark hair, pale skin, subdued makeup, and kind of neutral clothing. And as such, gals often get stereotyped as being promiscuous or loud or boisterous, flirtatious. The show starts and this gal wakes up and she let a dinosaur sleep over the night before, not in a sexual way, and then they just kind of end up cohabitating from there. The dinosaur does not speak. I literally don't know what else to say about the plot of the show. That's more or less it. I dropped this show, but I do not think it's bad. In fact, I really enjoyed about a quarter of each episode. Okay, let me explain. There are 3 different things going on with this show. There are animated sequences where you have this anime girl and this anime dinosaur. And then there are also these, like, 3D animation segments, which were usually very dull. They have this, like, timer at the end, and it's like, the funny thing is going to happen here. And when I say the funny thing, I mean, like, a at best mildly amusing thing is going to happen here, and you have to wait. Oh, God. And then the last half of each episode is live action. The best part of the live action segments is the person in this mascot dinosaur outfit. But a lot of these live action segments really closely mirror what's happening in the anime part. So I'm not sure where the humor is supposed to be. Except there's also some weird Power Rangers, like, time travel characters doing things in the background of the live action part. But it either needed more of that or none of that. So basically it's all just very uneven because you literally have different parts put in there. And I didn't find it that funny. I liked when it was just kind of being calm and chill and slice of life. I liked it less when it was actively trying to be funny. I feel like if I was hanging out with someone and they said, hey, let's watch an episode of Gal and Dinosaur, I would be like, yeah, okay. But I lack that desire to seek it out and choose to watch more, which is why I stopped. Here we have Gleipnir. I watched 1 episode of Gleipnir. Our main character turns into this stuffed animal inspired beast monster thing, and he saves this girl, but then she blackmails him with knowledge that he has this supernatural power. And also in the process of rescuing her, he sniffs her panties and has to resist the urge to rape her. And yeah, that was kind of where I checked out. Not my scene. Hachi nante sore wa nai desho. This is an isekai where an office worker falls asleep and wakes up in a child's body in a new world. He's the 8th son of a noble family that lives out in the country and has no real wealth and are also illiterate. So at that point I was kind of excited because he knows how to read, because apparently being able to read Japanese allows you to read whatever the language is in this world. And so he goes into the library and he can use that to learn about the world. And I'm like, oh, cool. He's going to use the fact that he can read to, like, improve his family's station in life. And that's not what happened at all. I mean, you're looking at the poster. I didn't really look at the poster before I watched it, but you can see the poster right here. And in some versions of this poster, it's even more obvious that he has magical powers. In fact, he actually basically read a book in his family library entitled How to Tell If You Have Magic Powers or Not. And he did. And apparently he has a harem. This was actually, like, seen for a little bit in the first minute or two of the show, but apparently I'd forgotten about it by the point that we were actually with him as a little boy. Or I didn't put the pieces together that it's the same person. I don't know. Again, I watched this months ago. Honestly, my favorite scene in the whole show was when he was just a Japanese salaryman and he was just this, like, guy in his mid-20s at home confidently cooking dinner for himself. And I was like, oh, this is attractive to me. I'm kind of into this. Oh, God, I'm getting old. Officially old now. You might be wondering why there's a picture of Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei right now. Well, the author of Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei is also the author of the next show we're going to talk about, which is Kakushigoto. Kakushigoto is a pun. It's a combination pun of kaku, shigoto, so like writing or drawing work, and kakushigoto, which is like a secret. I don't entirely understand the construction of the second phrase. I understand the first phrase. Go lame Japanese skills. This is a comedy slice of life series about a father-daughter relationship. He's a single father raising his young daughter, but he writes perverted manga for a living and doesn't want her to find out. So he's kind of overprotective of her and really careful about keeping his secret from her. I did find this show pretty funny, although if you know this author, a lot of their comedy comes from puns, and sometimes those puns just don't work well in translation, which is always going to happen. It's kind of like how I don't instantly get the title of the show, but I'm sure a Japanese person would. There are also hints of something tragic going on in the background, which is a really interesting through line, and it keeps making you want to come back and see the next episode. Overall, from what I remember, I enjoyed Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei more, but this was a lot of fun. It's very charming. The characters are very appealing and interesting. You kind of want things to work out for them. I wanted to see the new episode every time it came out, and I watched the whole thing, and I don't have any regrets about it. This is Kami no To, Tower of God, which is based on a Korean webtoon, which happens to be available for free in English online if you want to read the comic instead. I watched all of the first season of the show, and I actually read a good chunk of the comic too, because I wanted to kind of see which one I preferred. And what ended up happening was that I liked watching the anime better. I felt like I understood the fight scenes more when I watched the anime, but at the same time, watching the anime just doesn't tell you everything that's going on. So reading the webtoon helped to inform what I was doing, so I was going back and forth. It's also worth noting that this entire first season is, as far as I can tell, basically a prologue to the actual story. I'm going to try and explain what's going on, and I'm pretty sure I'm confused, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get comments about it. Just be kind. There's a boy named Bam, and the first person he's ever met And, like, the only person is this girl named Rachel. Rachel teaches him everything about the world. In this world, there's a Tower of God, and if you climb the tower to the top, you're supposed to get whatever you want, like whatever you desire. The girl enters the tower on her own and tells Bam not to come, but then Bam follows her because she's literally the only thing in his life. Here's the part where I'm confused. So, they enter the tower, but they also haven't entered the tower because there's like a more towery part of the tower, and then they have to go through all of these tests to qualify as a regular so they can go to like the towery part of the tower, where I presume there will also be more tests. And also, like, this is a world where you can't see the stars anymore, and it seems like there's like countries in the tower, but like lower than in where the testing area is that we are now. And people aren't supposed to come into the tower from outside. Important part is, Bam comes in, he starts passing these tests, he meets a bunch of really cool characters. This is this is what I'm watching for, is like these characters. It's a lot of stuff that you see in a shonen adventure store. It's a little reminiscent of like the Hunter x Hunter exam, in the sense that not every part of the exam is just go do a fight. There's other things going on, but there's also a lot of fighting. Bam is honestly not super interesting by himself, but I liked a lot of these other characters in the show. They had really interesting stories, personalities, character designs. I liked the fights. I liked some of the scheming that was going on. I was really excited to see the next episode every time, and I hope they get a season 2 because I want to watch more. Our next show is Listeners, a post-apocalyptic future with music-powered mecha things. Oh, I had to give that a try. But I didn't get very far. Maybe 2 or 3 episodes. I didn't care much for the main characters or their personalities or really even their character designs. And I just didn't really get what was going on. Like, I don't mean I was confused about what was going on. I mean that I didn't feel it and I didn't really care. See, the only reason I tried episode 3 was because I enjoyed part of episode 2 a lot, because there was this really campy trio of girls that gave me nostalgia for Team Rocket. It's like Team Rocket dressed up as extras from the Automata. But that's the only part of the show I really enjoyed, and I just stopped. This is My Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom. Or, Otome game no Hamatsu flag shika nai akuyaku reijou ni tensei shite shimatta. The title of the show takes up an entire line of my script. An otome game is usually a dating game targeted towards women, so like a dating sim or a visual novel, and in these games you have different conquerable characters, so it's like, which of these guys are you going to end up with, and you can steer the story in one direction or the other with your choices. You might play it again to solve all the different routes. Our main character is really into these games, and in fact she's been playing one of these games based on a magical high school, but then she dies and ends up isekai'd into the game world. She ends up in the body of the main villain of the game as a little kid. She hasn't played all the storylines in the game, but she's played a lot of them, and in most of the storylines, the character who she now is ends up dead or exiled. That's the all routes lead to doom part of the show. If you're expecting her to be a villain, now that is not what's happening here. She wants to use her knowledge of the game to avoid being the villain so that she can avoid being killed or being exiled. I felt the first few episodes that were showing her childhood and showing her meeting the conquerable characters were a little slow, but still pretty charming. But when she entered the Magical Academy, things got really, really fun. See, our Katarina, or Baccarina as the fans have taken to calling her, is a lovable idiot. Instead of being a rich, stuck-up bitch as she was in the video game, she has managed to charm everyone around her, including not just all the conquerable characters, but pretty much all the main female characters in the game as well. That's right, this is an LGBT inclusive reverse harem. Overall, this show is more wholesome and fun than actively hilarious, but there are a few good laugh out loud moments, and I was so excited when I found out they were actually getting a season 2. Princess Connect Redive. This show is a complete mystery to me, and I say that as someone who watched the entire first season and will probably watch a season 2 if it comes out. This show is based on a mobile gacha game where you summon pretty girls who are all princesses. The only real downside about this show is that it does introduce a ton of characters. They often come like 3 or 4 at a time. Apparently this is because they all come from different guilds in the video game, and the main characters we're following are from the Gourmet Guild. But I will say, as a show that introduced a ton of characters, anytime they popped up again, like, of course I didn't remember their name, I don't even remember all of the main characters' names, but I would remember who they were. Like, I could remember their one quirk. So that's pretty good in a single season with a ton of characters. Our main character appears to be a hero from a previous world who's been brought into this world as well to fight the same fight against the same people using the same powers. He has this power that enhances all of the princesses around him, basically all the female characters. So it's less that he's super powerful at fighting, but that if you're fighting with him, you become way more powerful. That said, he has amnesia to the point where he rarely talks and in fact tries to eat a coin because he doesn't understand what money is. So we have this hero that enhances the other people's fighting powers, but this show isn't really about fighting, even though I think most episodes do have a battle. But it's mostly a slice of life show about our characters who are in the Gourmet Guild, and they're going around doing quests that will get them rare ingredients so they can eat good food. But there's also a big bad villain in the background of the show, and there's definitely scheming going on. When I think about this show, I think that it should be a mess. There are objectively too many things going on here. There's like the food porn and the slice of life and the disagreements between the girls and like, is it a harem? It doesn't seem very harem-y, even though everyone kind of likes Yuki, the main guy. And is he gonna have the insomnia and he's this hero from another world and there's this big bad, but like they're mostly just fighting animals to like get eggs, and like I don't know how it works, but it just kind of works. It's very comfy, and I ended up with emotional attachments to some of the main characters, and there were lots of genuinely funny moments, there were lots of touching moments, there were even some genuinely creepy moments. Like, there is scarier imagery in this show than some actual horror anime I have seen. I think I've used the word charming too many times this season, but this show is a charming mess. And given that it is an adaptation of a mobile game I've never even heard of, I don't know how they got like this quality of animation and writing and stuff, but it's a lot of fun. Shachou, Baro no Jikan desu is set in a fantasy world, and it seems like it's trying to be a parody of fantasy adventure guild type shows and office work. Except I don't think it does a really good job of doing either. I think I watched maybe 2 episodes. I tried to give it an extra shot to see if like the humor would start to connect, but it really didn't. I actually kind of liked the main character's design. You don't see a lot of main characters in anime rocking like the ponytail, and I'm into long hair on guys, and I didn't hate his like kind of office casual look, but it really clashes with all the other character designs. They don't look like they belong together, and there just wasn't very much going on in the show. Shironeko Project Zero Chronicle. This is a show where I almost certainly watched more of it than I should have. There was something about the simplistic dualism of the Demon King, Angel Queen, Romeo and Juliet thing that appealed to me. I kind of liked the main character's design, and I thought the simple dualism could lead to a kind of almost fairy tale feel or vibe, except it turns out that's not at all what the show was going for. I'm genuinely not even sure what to say. I felt like the opening promised me this romance story, but then they don't even meet until like episode 3, so like the romance hadn't even started by the end of episode 3 in like a 12 episode season. And while I kind of liked their character designs, I didn't like a lot of the other character designs. They didn't really give us much of a personality in these two leads. The animation was not great, especially some of the CG in the battle scenes. I lost interest pretty fast, and I think if I hadn't had in my mind a vision of where I thought they were going and how interesting my vision could be, that I wouldn't have watched this many episodes. I should have stopped after 1. Next is BNA. I haven't watched as many Trigger, Imaishi Hiroyuki shows as I would have liked. I have a lot of them on my to watch list and haven't actually watched them. I will say that Kill la Kill is one of my favorite shows. I loved Promare. It was really awesome. I think BNA is fine. The animation and character designs are amazing, but that's basically what I expect from Trigger. I mean, I still love Zero too, despite how bad that show did her dirty. I never once had a moment of confusion where I saw someone's animal version and couldn't immediately recognize their human version, or saw their human version and couldn't immediately recognize their animal version. The designs are just excellent that way. The story is not bad. It's not like by the books, but they give you enough hints that it ends up feeling very predictable when things happen, just because they've been telegraphed so clearly. And so like nothing blew my mind. And obviously that's not usually what I expect of a show, but I think this show suffered from expectations. I kind of wanted something amazing, and I got something perfectly good. I also think if you're more into animal humanoids than I am, that there might be an extra bit of appeal there to this that I did not get. Michiru spends almost the entire show wanting to go back to being human, which is perfectly fine as a motivation. But then you get this middle chunk of the show where she has these crazy amazing superpowers and she can literally do anything she wants. And I'm just sitting there feeling frustrated because I no longer connect with this character, because I'm like, what do you mean you want to go back to being human? You can already transform to your human self when you want to look human, but you can also fly. That got me kind of annoyed. My best boy for spring 2020 is Kun, the blue turtle of Kaminoto. No, that comment's not going to make sense to you if you haven't watched the show, and I'm not apologizing. First off, his character design is just right up my alley. I've never gotten over my white hair phase. I was in middle school when I asked my mom to dye my hair white, and she did not let me. And now it's a thing, like 20 years later, and I could have been the one. I think, like, half the plot of the first season of Kaminoto is just Kun wrecking everyone with his shenanigans. I don't know how you get to the end of the Crown game without falling in love with this character. Part of me wishes he was the main character instead of Bam, because he's so much more interesting, but it's probably more fun not knowing exactly what's going on in his head. You know that he's up to something, but you don't know what, and I think in this case that might be more interesting than hearing him plotting things step by step. I do like that he almost gets charmed by Bam. Like, it feels like he's like, wait, this is actually a genuinely nice person who's loyal and innocent. I didn't know those actually existed. Must protect! It kind of makes Bam's success more palatable, because you don't get the impression that he's getting through all these tests based on luck. Instead, you're like, oh, well, he's getting a lot of help from Kun, and Kun's scheming, and Kun's really helping him along. And it just feels better that it's coming from a character and their agency, even if it's not the main character's agency, instead of just being divine luck. My best girl for spring 2020 is Baccarina. How do you not love Baccarina? You have a show concept that usually doesn't work for me, because I'm not that big into harems, and there aren't that many good reverse harems either. And a character I don't usually like, which is like an oblivious type, and you make them both work for me, that's what makes this so special. And it's worth noting that she's oblivious about some things, but not about other things, which is what stops it from being so annoying. She's really thinking through her life and how to avoid all of the things that happen to her character in the video game. She feels like someone with actual strengths and weaknesses instead of just, woohoo, I don't know what's going on. I also like that she is a noble child, and the staff and her parents are like trying to raise her to be this proper lady, and she does seem to understand how to be a proper lady. She just doesn't care, and she will roll up her sleeves and get dirty. She keeps making a farm everywhere she goes, and she can climb a tree in a flash like a monkey. She just has this disregard for what people expect of a noble person if it's getting in the way of what she wants to do. And first off, that appeals to me anyway as a bit of a weirdo, but secondly, that's what keeps charming people about her. The fact that she's just gonna be her no matter what is what that's the main thing that attracts all these characters to her. I think a really important part of enjoying a harem or reverse harem is having some level of understanding why everyone keeps falling for this character. And I can really understand why they keep falling for her. She's just so interesting compared to all the other people that they know. That's it for my seasonal impressions spring 2020 video. You can like this video, subscribe for more, follow me on twitter.com/Orestria, come chat with me in the Tales from My D&D Campaign Discord, all that good stuff. I am still working on the Madoka video. It's coming along. It's almost there. No promises about when it'll be out, but it's coming. Hey, see you next time. Bye-bye.